What's going on, everybody? Today, I am here to do a review for one of my most anticipated movies of the year, Superman. Superman is the 2025 film directed by James Gunn, director of the Guardians of the Galaxy series, and is the first film in the DCU or the DC Cinematic Universe, and the first Superman film since Man of Steel in 2013 starring Henry Cavill. Before I get knee deep into my review, my expectations for this film were pretty tampered considering the mid to below mid DC has been feeding us over the years, but I have to be completely honest with you. My expectations were more than exceeded with this one. Superman takes place 3 years after Clark Kent, or Kal-El, has been established as Superman. I want y'all to keep a pin in this as I go into my pros and cons later on in this review. He is currently working as a journalist for the Daily Planet and is in a relationship with one of the head journalists, Lois Lane. While he has this going on, he is also contending with the menacing and maniacal Lex Luthor, who wants nothing more than to stop Superman at all costs so he can fulfill his goal of global domination. While Superman is dealing with the conflict of being the hero, he knows the people he is saving may see him as a huge issue. Also, at the same time, while conflicting with himself as Superman, he also has to deal with him being Clark Kent as well, almost as if he's dueling with both sides of himself. Superman, or Clark Kent, is played by David Corenswet, who delivers a compelling and charismatic performance as the Man of Steel. He balances well between dramatic performance and comedic performance seamlessly. Many people had skepticism around him due to him being used to Henry Cavill's portrayal, but rest assured, he gave the best performance he could both as Clark Kent and as Superman. Lex Luthor was portrayed by Nicholas Hoult, and let me just say this: if the awards committees were more kind to superhero and comic book movies, he would get as many nominations as possible because his portrayal as Lex Luthor was menacing, captivating, scary, and diabolical. Some of the things he said and did in this movie had me speechless. I don't want to spoil anything, but there is a scene in here that had the entire audience gasp for air when he did what he did to a side character who only had like 2 scenes in the whole movie. That is what I and many others wanted from a Lex Luthor, and it's such a breath of fresh air compared to the Jesse Eisenberg version we saw in BVS. Lois Lane was portrayed by Rachel Brosnahan, and one thing I like about this version of Lois that I rarely if ever saw with other versions of her over the years is that she did not come off as a damsel in distress. There were times that Lois was in the field, so to speak, and when she was being in reporter or journalist mode, she even pulled that off very well. In some instances, I thought she was also a part-time detective. There were also other characters in the movie, such as Guy Gardner or Green Lantern, Mr. Terrific, and Hawk Girl, who are part of what is known as the Justice Gang, and they all work with Superman when it comes to getting the job done. One thing I liked about these three is that while they worked together at times, they all had a moment to shine on their own, but none more than Mr. Terrific. This man had a scene near a beach that damn near made me applaud at the end of the scene because of how well it was executed. But all three of them had their moments. Guy Gardner definitely was the comedic relief of damn near every scene he was in, but it definitely paid off in the end. There was also another character introduced by the name of Metamorpho, whose ability are to be able to turn his body into pretty much anything down to the molecular level, and based on how this movie ended, we will most likely see him again in the future. You also had 2 additional villains in here by the name of Ultraman and the Engineer, who work with Lex Luthor and do his dirty work for him as far as the physical altercations when it comes to dealing with Superman. But one character that is very imperative to the story that I have to mention is Krypto. Krypto is Superman's superdog, and don't let the cuteness fool you. Krypto is playful when he wants to be, but he's aggressive and lethal when he wants to be as well, as you will see in this film. The writing in this movie was pretty decent. It was a mixture of drama and comedy. You can tell James Gunn sprinkled his Guardians of the Galaxy seasoning into the script, but it worked. One major thing some people had issues with when it came to the previous Superman iteration is how dark in tone it was. Nothing wrong with having shadowy tones, but for it to all look like one big eclipse can be overbearing and in some cases boring. I am glad this script did not reflect that, and it was truly something for everyone to enjoy. The direction and cinematography of this movie were so captivating, especially any sequence where Superman was flying. I loved how they did various shots of him flying throughout the film, whether it was from the side, the camera was in front of his face, even the shaky cam they did in one of the scenes worked as well because it gave the viewer the aspect as if we were Superman, and it showed that his flying mechanism is not nearly as smooth as it appears. This movie does not skimp on using dashes of the theme music throughout the film. It was almost like they were trying to tell the audience in a subtle way to go and download the soundtrack when the movie was over. The sound effects were used were cool as well. The overall message of this film, in my opinion, is that you cannot save everybody no matter how hard you try. I mean, you can try with all your might as you may, but it won't mean much if people have a preconceived notion of you. The pros that I have for this movie is the performances overall, especially from Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. In my opinion, he gave probably one of the best performances in the entire movie. And that's not taking anything away from everybody else, but his performance was definitely top tier. Another pro that I have is the production value. I really believe that I was in every location that was presented in this film. And remember when I told you to put a pin in something I was about to say when I got to the pros and cons section? This is the pin I'm talking about. I love that this movie was not an origin story. We have seen the origin story from Superman so many times. We don't need the backstory. At this point, we already know how everything happened. They bypass that and it jumps right into the story. So that is a major pro for me. But a personal pro that I had for myself was being able to see this movie on Tuesday thanks to the Amazon Prime special they had, and what an experience it was for me. I mean, to see a bunch of people in there who are fans of this, or maybe general audience there. It was even someone there who actually came dressed up in a Superman costume. And the last pro that I have is IMAX. Go see this movie on the biggest premium screen that you can. You will do yourself a disservice, in my opinion, if you do not do this. I would say the only con that I have for this movie, or that I can think of right off the bat, is that we did not get enough time with Clark Kent. I think we only dealt with Superman as Clark Kent in maybe 3 scenes, albeit one of those scenes was very deeply emotional. And it was a con because, to me, I believe David Corenswet was able to pull off being both Clark Kent and Superman flawlessly. Without spoiling anything, there are 2 interesting cameos in this movie that set up respective future DC projects. And there are 2 post-credit scenes, one mid-credit and one post-credit. So make sure to stay to the end to see what they are. All in all, I really enjoyed Superman for what it was, and I can honestly say I'm ready to see what the DCU is going to bring in the foreseeable future. Y'all let me know what you think. Will you be watching Superman this week or this weekend? If you were not planning on watching, did my review convince you otherwise? Tell me what y'all think down in the comments, and I will talk to you in the next one.